Hi, I'm Dr. Mike, host of the free iTunes podcast, Psychiatric Secrets Revealed with Dr. Mike, but that's not why I'm here today. This is another Saving Savvy episode, this time looking at a marvelous cooking device. Now, what would you say if I told you about a cooking device that cooked sometimes faster than a microwave, was green because it only used about 50% of the power of normal cooking, and actually could take the most tough and fibrous foods and turn them into delectable treats? Well, that's what I'm going to tell you about today. It's an amazing, amazing device, and we're going to have one of our crew here bring it in. Can you bring in the device? Oh, that's not the device. He brought in a soft cat. This device can't cook at all. So let's bring in the real device. Here it is. Thank you. It is, of course, a pressure cooker. Now, pressure cookers have some bad press. A lot of times people will remember stories of pressure cookers exploding or making mushy food. But I'm here to kind of dispel those rumors. The pressure cookers that, quote, exploded were ones that were designed in the 1940s and 1950s and really were very poorly made because there was this kind of burgeoning market out there for pressure cookers and people were just slapping them together. But for the last 40 or more years, pressure cookers have been amazingly safe. They do not explode. They're very simple to use. The other thing is that some people have memories of pressure cookers producing just mushy food, kind of everything was like a big glob. Well, that's usually because the mom or the dad that was cooking in those days thought they would add a few extra minutes just to make sure that things were done. Pressure cookers cook amazingly fast, about 70% faster than a typical range, so even adding a few minutes can make a big, big difference. So let's take a look at the parts of a pressure cooker, and I'm going to use my pressure cooker as an example here to show you some positives and some negatives too. So we're going to take the lid off this. So I'll do that right here. Just slides off because there's really two parts to a pressure cooker. And the first thing I want to illustrate is a pressure cooker is just a big saucepan. This particular one is 6 quarts, but pressure cookers come in all sorts of sizes. But 6 quarts is really the most versatile pressure cooker size for most families. If you're a single person or maybe a couple, maybe you'd consider a 4 quart. If you're a big family or you have big appetites, maybe you'd consider an 8 quart. But 6 quarts is pretty good. Pressure cookers are made out of 2 different materials. This one happens to be made out of stainless steel. The other material is aluminum. But since we have this one here, let's talk about stainless steel first. Stainless steel, of course, is the queen of cookware. It's non-reactive to foods, it's very durable, and it doesn't really stain, and it kind of keeps its luster. This pressure cooker has got to be at least, I don't know, 8 or 9 years old. Downside to stainless steel is it's heavier. It's not a very good conductor of heat, so on a stainless steel pressure cooker, you're always going to have some other material fused to the bottom. In this case, we have this big, thick aluminum cookie. The other thing is that it's going to be more expensive. Aluminum pressure cookers tend to be much cheaper, they're lighter, and of course aluminum is a great conductor of heat, but aluminum tends to react with certain foods, especially acidic foods, and some people just don't like cooking with aluminum, and it's not going to retain its beauty like a stainless steel pressure cooker will. If you look at the top of this cooker, you're going to see this flanging, this kind of little notching over here, and that's because all pressure cookers, the lid will lock to the saucepan. Now this is the most common method where you have these notches, but other manufacturers do different things and they all work kind of the same. I mean, they all work just as well, so just pick the one that you like the most. If you notice the inside of my pressure cooker, you'll see my first mistake. This is a non-stick lining. It's actually held up pretty well because I've really babied it. But non-stick linings are always temporary. In other words, they last, even the best ones, for years. Pressure cookers are made so sturdy because they have to withstand the pressure that pressure cookers last for decades. So years, decades. The bottom line is you want to get a pressure cooker with a natural lining, not a non-stick one. Okay, let's move on to the lid, which is a marvel in itself. Again, it's going to be very heavy because it has to withstand the pressure of the pressure cooker. And by the way that pressure cookers cook is they increase the pressure inside the pot. With a higher pressure, you have a higher temperature, usually about 250 degrees, and that higher temperature allows much faster cooking. So this is really heavy. Let's take a look at the bottom. And you're going to see all kind of little doodads, little vents and little things that move, and each pressure cooker brand and model will have a different set of little things down here, but there'll always be something down there. The thing that I want to draw your attention to is this center part here, which is it's the vent for the regulator, and we're going to talk more about that later. The other thing, another one of my mistakes that I want to tell you about is this. Now, people rarely think about this when they think about purchasing a pressure cooker. This is the gasket, sometimes called the sealing gasket or the sealing ring. And these used to be made out of rubber, now they're made out of silicone, and this provides the final seal between the lid and the saucepan. Now, the thing that you need to know about gaskets is they are specific to the make and model of the pressure cooker. So you can't just go to the store and say, I would like a gasket, please. You have to get one for that particular brand and that particular model of that brand. And this is where the problem lies. This particular pressure cooker was purchased off one of those home shopping type networks, and it had a huge warranty on it, and it was really very nice. But guess what? The company went belly up, and the home shopping network, of course, is not going to support the product. So when this gasket goes, my pressure cooker goes from being a great pressure cooker to being basically just a big saucepan. So you always want to get a pressure cooker brand that supports the replacement parts. This one does not. How long does a gasket last, you may ask? Well, it really depends. If you abuse a gasket by overheating the pressure cooker or maybe running this through the dishwasher or stretching it or something, probably less than a year. This one is many years old, but I really take care of it. I wash it after each use and do all those sorts of things. So it's still holding up pretty well. But again, gaskets will last for years. Pressure cookers last for decades. So you want to get a supported brand. I'm going to put this back in, just so I don't lose it. Not that I would. And let's take a look at the top. Now again, every pressure cooker is going to have a different arrangement on the top. This one here has a little release valve, and this thing here pops up when the lid locks. But the important thing that I want to draw your attention to is this here, which is the regulator. When a pressure cooker heats up, pressure is produced in the pan. It's kind of sealed off like this, and eventually that pressure will exceed the recommended limits. And what we're looking for is 15 psi, or pounds per square inch. That's also called on European pressure cookers 1 bar or 100 kilograms per centimeter square. It's all the same thing, but we're looking in U.S. pressure cookers for 15 psi because that is where all the cookbooks cook at. And what happens is, as the pressure builds up, there's again like a little vent here. It eventually will push up this calibrated weight, and a little steam will escape, and then the pressure will drop and the weight goes down. So what will happen is this will go psst, and then it'll go relax again. The pressure builds up and go psst, and it will relax again. And pretty soon you'll have a little dance on top of here going psst, 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 as it regulates the pressure inside. This is the simplest and most common form of regulation. There's a variation on this theme where the regulator doesn't rock, it just lifts, and those things are more like hissers. They'll just go sss, as opposed to pss, 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 pss. There is a second type of regulator on European pressure cookers that's called a spring valve. That tends to be quieter, a little more precise, a little classier, but the bottom line is this is on millions of pressure cookers. This works fine. The spring valve works fine too. So you just figure out which one you want, or which one you're comfortable with, or which one you can afford, and that's going to be fine. Now, I talked about that 15 psi number. Again, that is critical for all pressure cookers because 99% of recipes cook at that pressure. Now, when I did some research on this topic, what I found were there are many, many pressure cookers out there that cook at lower PSIs. How low? It just depends on the brand or the model. Some are 8, some are 10, some are 11.6. I found one that was 13.8, one that was 13. So it's very variable. And if you have a non-standard pressure cooker, the problem that you're going to run into is it's going to take, 1, longer for things to cook, and 2, you're not going to save as much energy. And 3, according to Miss Vicky, who's kind of this pressure cooker expert, she says the results won't be as predictable.